what about the confusion over EU policy on China? President Macron says Taiwan isn't Europe's business. Europe's foreign policy chief says it really is. Whatever happened to unity in the European Union? My guest is Charles Michel, President of the European Council. Beijing has been awarded a lot of face time by European leaders. You yourself met Xi Jinping last year. I was struck by your comment on the meeting when you said that both the EU and China have an interest in a rules-based world with the UN Charter at its core. Really? Given China's illegal expansion in the South China Sea and the massive human rights violations taking place inside the country, it's clear they're not working from the same UN rule book as you are. So why suggest there's a common approach to a rules-based world when there clearly isn't?
Yeah. First, I strongly believe in the multilateral approach. I strongly believe in the UN Charter.
This wasn't my question.
But I will answer your question. My second point is that I'm not naive. We know, we can observe that China would like to set the international rules, and these are rules that wouldn't be inspired by the same values that we have on the EU side, for instance. And I see 3 points in our relationship with China. First, we will be always very firm in protecting and defending the human rights and the democratic principles. This is very clear. And systematically, when I had the occasion to talk with the Chinese authorities, I systematically the occasion to explain our convictions on those questions. Point one. Point two, I'm absolutely convinced that we need to rebalance the economic relationships between China and the European Union. And this is the idea to de-risk our relationship with
but
with
you flattered them for no reason at all, saying that they were interested in the same rules-based world as you are.
This is not serious to use this word. This is not how I am acting with regard to China. And point three, if we are serious on the EU side on climate change, if we are serious on some security challenges, we need to talk to China. We need to engage with China. It doesn't mean that we agree on all those topics with China. Let's take climate change, for instance. It's very important to try to convince China to be much more active, to put in place a carbon pricing mechanism, for instance. Let's take COVID-19 and health, for instance. If we want to address those challenges in the future, we need to talk with them and with other countries in the world.
Look, I'd like to come back to the issue of human rights, which you stressed. You didn't please everyone on your trip. 10 major human rights groups are incensed that you've reopened what they called the meaningless human rights dialogues with Beijing, which was suspended in 2019 after the EU sanctioned Chinese officials involved in human rights violations. Fair point by those groups, isn't it? Because the talks so far have changed nothing and will continue to change nothing. You agree to talk about to talk about human rights, and they agree to ignore the discussion.
I would like to ask you a question. Do you think that if we would stay in Brussels, if we would send a communique from Brussels on those topics, we would achieve something? I'm absolutely convinced that we would achieve nothing. And that's why it's very important to engage. And for instance, I'm very proud.
Why engage without results?
I'm very proud that after the meeting we had with President Xi in December, we've been able to relaunch this human rights dialogue with Beijing, because this is the occasion for us to advocate, to mention concrete cases, and to try to really defend the human rights principles, the democratic
and without any results. And you have, without any results.
I fully disagree. You think, if I follow your approach, it means that we would be more efficient by staying here in Brussels without engaging. Of course, it takes time. Of course, it's difficult. I am not saying that we are delivering in 1 minute or in 1 second, but I am convinced that if we do not engage, it is absolutely certain that we will not deliver. When we engage, we open the door in order to do everything to deliver.
Just very briefly, the human rights groups, the 10 major human rights groups, don't agree with you at all. They say having a human rights dialogue with China cannot seriously be an end in itself. They want you to tie a dialogue. They want you to tie a dialogue to real human rights progress. progress, including in Xinjiang and Tibet.
This is what we are doing. This is a very strange point of view, because this is exactly what we are doing. When we are discussing with China, we are discussing without any taboo on all those questions.
Yeah, but can you point to a single aspect of human rights in China that these talks have altered for the better in the past? Can you?
Since COVID-19, those talks were put on hold, and we succeeded to relaunch those talks.
Before?
Yeah, but since 2019, it was put on hold in total. And we have again a political space, a political dialogue to engage with those with this country on all the topics that needs to be discussed. And by the way, before my trip to China, I had the occasion to meet many representatives of those human rights organizations, and this was very important. It was the occasion for me to listen to them and to use also the arguments that they shared with me.
Earlier this year, China played host to France's President Macron, who took a bunch of businessmen with him to sign trade deals, and then decided to open up a rift between Europe and the US over Taiwan. The great risk Europe faces, he said, is that it gets caught up in crises that are not ours, which prevents it from building its strategic autonomy. Isn't it the height of irresponsibility to highlight divisions with your most important ally, America, at a time when both Russia and China have joined forces to erode human rights and the rule of law?
Two topics. There is a very clear European position. Our alliance with the United States is very strong and very powerful. This is extremely clear, point one. And point two, on Taiwan, there is also a very clear European position. We do not accept the attempt to change in an unilateral way the status quo in the Taiwan Strait, point one. And we recognize the one China policy. This is the traditional European policy, and nothing is changed with regard to this.
Well, your foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, publicly slapped down Monsieur Macron by saying EU members should actually deploy warships to patrol the Taiwan Strait in order to deter Beijing's aggression. How are you going to sort out these differences of opinion on China within the European Union?
Two different things. First, this proposal made by Josep Borrell, it will be the responsibility of the member states to discuss the topic, and this is the responsibility of Josep Borrell to put some proposals on the table, point one.
Macron is saying it's not the EU's business, and Borrell saying it is. Borrell saying it is. Clear gap.
And France is very active in the Indo-Pacific region, which shows that France has a real interest for that region. But let me tell you that I'm aware that in the press, in the media, especially the recent days or weeks, there is an impression of huge divisions on the European side on China.
It's not impressions, they're real, aren't
No,
they?
this is not the reality. I will tell you, because I think that I know a little bit what are the sensitivities in the Council. I can tell you that in fact we are much more converging, and I'm very confident that in the following weeks, and this is the democratic debate we have in Europe, in the weeks to come, we will have the occasion to clarify and to have a common position on China. We will have, in June, this is my responsibility, to put a topic on the agenda in the European Council, that debate on China. We are preparing the debate at the ministerial level with the different stakeholders, with our partners, with our allies.
Let me ask you just one specific question, because we're running out of time. What's the EU's plan if China invades Taiwan? What's the plan?
The plan is to do everything to convince China not to make such a mistake.
Yeah, but if you fail, what then?
What then? Okay,
what
but
then?
This is plan A and plan B. Our partners will count on the European solidarity and responsibility.
To do what?
In any case.
To do what?
Do you remember the weeks before the start of the war against Russia? We worked in close coordination with all our partners in order to assess what would be our reactions, and we will do the same, and we are doing the same with our partners.
And it didn't prevent the invasion?
Yeah, because in fact you are absolutely right. There is someone in the Kremlin who took the decision to start a crazy war, the Kremlin's war, and we are doing everything to make sure that Ukraine will win, because this is our interest.
All right, Charles Michel, been great to have you on Conflict Zone. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.